Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Jim and Sam Town Square. I'm Scott King. Jim and Sam fans know me from the Forbes articles, and I'm joined, as always, by multi-Emmy award-winning television producer Chris Cangilla. This episode recapping week 2 of April 2024. The bracket challenge is no more. Punishment yet to be given out, Chris, but one of the, arguably the best Jim and Sam bits is in the can. I mean, how great was it for you to listen to all this? And you filled out a bracket too.
Yeah, that was the best part, that us listeners could participate a little bit too. And I'll go over my results. We got the guys' results. But yeah, it was a good radio bit. And I don't like saying bit because it didn't like they planned this whole kind of, we're going to make up this thing and do. No, it was, integral. It was just something that kind of just happened. And those are usually the best creative, things that they do. So yeah, it was fantastic. Now, before we get into the results, let's go through, if you could, maybe one of the most surprising things you might have seen or not seen in this tournament, as far as something that you thought Jim hated, but maybe you didn't. What was one of the things that was most surprising to you?
I was surprised that after hearing him talk about the aerial shots on convertibles and rap videos a couple times on the show, oh no, I'm sorry, it was Hip Hop Breaks. He really didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't like the aerial shots, but that didn't get too far.
Yeah.
He really talked about disliking Hip Hop Breaks on the show a few times. And then when they started playing samples for him last week, like he realized he liked a few of them. And I did too, actually. I thought I didn't like them. There was a couple good ones. So that, and then this week was Kathy Hochul, how far she got.
Yeah. And then
it makes sense. He broke it down. Like everything, even when he surprised you, it makes sense. But I was surprised by that.
yeah, and like Sam, I had 747 Max going further than it ever did. I don't think it got out of the first round, and that was the biggest surprise to me. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
And we'll go through it just like they did. We're going to go into the Teft conference. And over in the Teft conference, we had, of course, the matchup between college alumni versus the press. And even though it was a hard-fought battle, and most predictions were that the fall of alumni would happen rather quickly, well, yeah, it came true. The press, Jim just despises the press. He hates college alumni, but he despises the press. And they're on to the finals. What do you think about that, Scott?
I mean, it makes sense. I think you could have predicted them getting pretty far, going back at least to the quarterfinals, because we hear Jim all the time talk about, how they're not really covering people just getting hit with bricks in New York or pushed in front of trains. When there's violent crimes, they won't give descriptions of people.
Right.
So, I mean, Jim goes off on, people don't love crime, but Jim goes off on the way the press covers it all the time. So I was not surprised.
Absolutely. And as a sidebar, this happened to be the same day that they're talking about. This is the day that I had to go get my press ID from the Chicago Police Department. So I am a member of the press that he hates, unfortunately.
Yes. And I'm occasionally as well.
Yes, I know.
Twice a month when I write for Forbes, I guess I'm a press member as well.
Yes,
so
you are. What can we do? All right, so let's move on to the favorite name of the conference, the Quanfis. So Troy Kwan, the Quanfis. That is the matchup that we had, and we've been looking forward to, of course, with the Squatters taking on Governor Hochul. And she did pretty well because they set her up for her to be part of the reasons for the Squatters. But as we predicted, she did not go as far. Kathy did lose, and the Squatters moved on. Your thoughts on that one?
I saw that result coming. And just another example of how the guys in the room would plead the case kind of for both sides, or they would try not to influence Jim. Jim wouldn't let them influence. Everything was just such a perfect storm. That's another example. I loved how this bit was handled by everybody.
Yeah, it was good. Okay, so Jim, of course, as we always know, he had to step away to go to the bathroom, but it leaves us time to go over what the guys were talking about, and they were trying to figure out, where they were math-wise and whatnot before they went to the final. So now it's time for the matchup, the final, right? The press versus Squatters. That was a hard one for Jim. He really had to investigate, look into it, give his reasoning why. But as we might have thought, the press are our national champs in the things Jim hates bracket challenge. Your thoughts on the press winning it all?
I mean, I wish it's, I've gone on vacation before, and this is a bit that I really, really would have loved to have been a part of the way that you and other listeners did. I think we just got on vacation when they put the bracket out.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's awesome that they did this, that they had brackets you could print out. I wish I had done it. So I think I might have had the press running. I just from what I said before about how Jim is always on them, so
Yep.
many news stories, so many instances in their own lives. I think you could have seen that coming. I think you could have seen this finals coming. The way Jim's talked about squatters
Yeah.
and the way the
Well,
show keeps covering it, right? So do you want to go over now what you had? I'll hand out.
yeah, I'm going to go over their results too, but they were the number one seeds in both sides of,
Yeah,
in the TEF conference as well as a Quanfest on the other side. Quanfest, it's hard to say that on the other side, but yeah, they were the number one seeds, and it made
yeah,
sense that
for a
they
reason.
made it. So let's go through how the guys did. Of course, we thought this was going to happen. Travis won. He had actually 42 points. And of course, being Travis, he has a nice connection with Jim. He even alluded this week that he's known Jim for almost 20 years now. So congratulations to Travis. He does
Thank you,
not
bro.
have to hug himself. Then we had Mike Cannon and Sam both with 39 points, respectable. And then intern Anthony, who's only been with the team for a little while, came off with 36 points, which was really good because
It's very good for an intern.
he
Very good.
outlasted and outdid Troy, who had a finish of 30 points. A little nervous, Troy had in going into who might be the loser. But of course, we know that the loser and the hug recipient will be Mike Montone, who had 25 points. Now we're going to get into the math and the points a little bit later. I
Yeah.
want to share with you what I finished with. So I got all three of the quad of the final four. That's the one that's X'd out over here in the corner is the 747. That this whole side of the bracket
Oh,
was
okay.
just
Okay.
destroyed. But I did have the three out of the four, the final four. I did have the matchup in the championship game, and I of course had the press winning 35 points for your boy here. So I did okay.
Respectable. It's respectable.
Not as good as Sam, but I figured out I've
Pretty
been a
good.
listener. I'm sure you would have done better.
Finals
But
are key. The finals are huge, and there
yeah, a
there were
lot more
just
points.
upsets, like regular March Madness. There were just upsets, so it's kind of busted everybody.
Yep. So it turns out Montone will get, as they said, germained a little bit later.
I
So
I love it.
yeah,
I love it,
go into
and
go into your thoughts.
with Montone, we've always talked about Montone since the beginning of our show. How much we love, how much he gets the show. I want to see what you think. I'm surprised that I guess I'm surprised that an intern beat him. Yeah, I would expect Troy and Sam and Travis to beat him just because they've known Jim longer. But Mike knows Jim. He knows the show. I love his reasoning. He called his bracket the Pride bracket because he leaned heavy into government representatives that influence or have an opinion
Yes,
on Jim's lifestyle. And Jim's like, I'm not that into that
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, you
So
think
yeah.
Montone, with his journalistic mind, would have had a little bit more insight, a little bit more questioning and knowledge base on Jim. But sometimes it comes down to that experience and that life spent with Jim, and that's maybe why Travis won. What other thoughts do you have?
I guess I'm just happy for Travis because he knows Jim very well and really put a lot of thought into it. I think the other guys did too. Um, but yeah, I am happy to see Travis win. And if you know what, if he lost, that wouldn't have been as fun or nearly as
No.
funny if he just hugged himself. I mean, I think we're going to talk soon about what's going to transpire, and it's
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, we're getting the setup for something that's going to be amazing. So we know that Montone, in losing, will get a 20-second hug from Travis. I think Montone might pop that shirt. He's got a good body, so he might pop that shirt. So that'll be a little bit more uncomfortable. And it kind of sounds like Montone is into it, which is even more uncomfortable for Travis. But there could be more uncomfortability coming Travis's way. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, something really blew up in his face because he was trying to kind of tease and taunt Troy that Troy should also have to do a hug. I think they landed on 5 seconds.
Right.
And you know what? Troy got really fired up over this because he knew it was unfair because he is not the loser.
No.
You know, was next to last, next to last. So he shouldn't have any punishment. He's like, okay, you want to do it? Let's go. And Troy is threatening to get nude, I believe, threatening to take
A
some
blue
kind of
chew, maybe?
a blue chew or Viagra, some kind of sexual enhancement mechanism before the hug. So I can't, and that I think drove Sam to say that look, there's going to be a rule where there's somebody has to have a cloth over the genitals, the
One
gens.
layer of clothing for
Yes,
sure.
one layer over the gens, and I can't wait. I can't wait
No.
to see what happens.
Yeah,
Troy is going to do something, I think.
I thought we were going to get this Thursday. I was looking forward to it. We'll get it
Yeah,
next week, I'm sure.
I do like how we have to wait sometimes. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean they set it up and then so they
happiness
got
is
me.
looking forward to things. So
Yes,
let's go.
exactly. You're absolutely right there, my brother. But yeah, so I saw a glimpse of Troy, old Troy, where he's, yeah, okay, okay. And then he just, the switch goes like, okay, you want to do this? Let's do this because, this is when cute goes wrong, he says. So yeah, he's going to really make it uncomfortable for Travis more so than it is for him. And
Yeah.
I just love this side of Troy. I know it's buried deep underneath this new Troy, Florida Troy. No, it's there. And it was fantastic. And I cannot wait. I'm beating the crap out of my mic. I'm so excited. I cannot wait until this happens next week. So, what about future episodes, or I should say, future iterations of the Things Jim Hates challenge?
Yeah, well, I think Jim kind of gave a hint at if we should expect that next year because we know they keep letting us know when they jot things down. When he says he hates things now, there's already, I believe, 10 entries into next year's potential tournament. But Jim said, you better do it in November of 2024, right? Because he thinks he's going to be gone, and now at this late in the game and I just think seeing everything's going great, the guys on the show. I just think something we're about to jump into here with how well Sam and Jim are doing. And Jim's got this whole thing going with Nikki where they have, this great content on the new YouTube channel. And Jim, we'll jump right into it. Sam, WrestleMania
Yeah.
last weekend. And the way people talked about it, you have The Rock, that storyline closing. I don't really follow wrestling, but seemed huge. Sam was there. Sam was did pre and post, and then he gets invited the next day to go on Pat McAfee on ESPN, a huge show. Jim on the biggest live podcast at Rogan's Club that's always sold out. There was over 100,000 live viewers on Kill Tony because Joe Rogan texts Tony Hinchcliffe, "Oh, hey, I got Tucker Carlson. We're just going to jump up." So they jumped up for an episode of Kill Tony where they critique comedians. They're actually pretty cool, the comics, too, though. I was watching. I thought it was a really great show. And then I checked since about last night, it was over 1.5 million people have watched that podcast with Jim. And Jim, of course, the guy with the best lines on that show with all those people. And that was such a great episode. So they're just killing it. They're going to be okay if the show's not intact next year, and I'm sure we'll still see some crossovers. Those guys get along great. It's not just Jim and
Yeah.
Sam, everybody on the show. So I think everyone's going to keep living large, but I do not think they're going to be together next year. How about you?
Yeah. I was reading through the lines. I think I mentioned that to you earlier. As soon as this came out and they're thinking about next year, I'm like, this is not going to happen next year. So they better
Yeah,
do it sooner. So yeah, it was disappointing. It was kind of funny too, because he even wrote down a new one that Jim said that he hated the bands that go in residency, where they are playing in Las Vegas, they go on in residency. It's like, no, you can't go to 2 weeks. 2 weeks is not a residency. What would be a residency? Well, Jim said it would be something where you keep on going, every week you can be seen there and everything. Someone goes, yeah, what about you at the Fat Black Pussycat on Wednesdays?
right.
And he goes, oh yeah, wait, yeah. So but yeah,
Yeah,
to your point of Sam and Jim killing it and the other things they do, absolutely. I mean, Sam's great stories about McAfee, and then I think it was a WWE executive noticing that he would like, how'd you get on Pat's show?
yeah,
Well,
yeah. He said that.
yeah, he's friends, with Pat.
Yeah,
And so that went well. And then of course, Jim brings his quickness to anything that he does, and he has those one-liners, and that's why he's been successful. He says he's not successful, but we all know he is successful, and that's why people love him. Is he's quick and he has these great lines, and he's
yeah,
funny and he's honest. So
yeah.
yeah, they're doing a lot of great things, as you well know.
people like having them around. And another thing with Sam's to show he's rubbing elbows with at WrestleMania, hanging with T-Pain,
Yeah.
the king of ringtones,
And of
Lars
course,
from Rancid, and
yeah,
even Barrymore.
he brings in Jim too to T-Pain. He says, "Hey, like Jim
Yes,
really loves, it's how cool Sam is. Jim really
yeah,
loves, Black Sabbath, and your version of War
that's
Pig was
right, totally.
fantastic. Yeah, so
Yeah,
very cool.
that was a cool note. Um, as much as things are going right for the duo here. One of them likes to live a little dangerously. Perhaps maybe they like to ride the lightning. Does Sam strike you as somebody who likes to ride the lightning, as you put it in our notes, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, he loves that phrase, and that is so true to who he is. I'm not a ride the lightning guy. I plan everything. Sam is seat of the pants, just boom. He's going to do things when he does. And so that made me think about it. And I think they even talked about it, his arrogance when he's going to travel by plane. And I'll just show up, and I never wait in the area for boarding. I just walk in and we're boarding, that kind of stuff. Yeah, he wins a little bit more than he loses, and I think that's why he keeps on doing it. But he does lose, and he ran out of gas coming home from WWE,
Yeah,
So that's a big loss. And he has a hybrid, so he couldn't even do that. So his arrogance makes him, when he's riding the lightning, sometimes get fried by that lightning. And of course, he was with Hot Dog on the way back from WWE in Philadelphia. And of course, in my thoughts, I thought it was Hot Dog's fault. I wanted to blame him
right.
from the get-go. But of course, it was Sam's fault. And I think it was when the eclipse was happening. So that's how they spent their eclipse, is trying to get that car. And there's a great story about how he, called the service to help him out, but he found some extra power in his car, if you will, or gas
Yeah,
that settled and was able to make it to the Phillips zone. And it just, what, that kind of behavior is just, if he made it and it didn't inconvenience him, he'll just keep on doing those kinds of things. He will ride
exactly.
the lightning as far as he can.
Yeah, Tuesday's episode was incredible. There's so many great stories, kind of all week, but Tuesday just like right into these stories. And I think he absolutely rides the lightning. And I think you got to be careful with that. This day and age, everything going wrong with the planes and anything else, like especially if you're not traveling with kids, be a
Yeah.
little
He
early.
did say, like you said before, we just mentioned with kids, he does do different
Yeah,
travel
he does it differently
when
with
he's with his
them.
family. Yep.
But even on your own to avoid any horrible situation, just be early. Listen to a podcast. Like listen to the show, our show, your show. Like there's no harm in being early. I think the car out of gas thing is inexcusable. My wife panics. Um, Probably mostly because my father-in-law is always asking how much gas we have in our cars, which is a very ingrained thing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but my wife
Yeah.
panics if it's anywhere near empty. So I'm just like trained now to, if you get under a quarter, you got to fill it up right away. So that's inexcusable. But I will say he probably justifies the airport thing. It's a great idea. Yes, just walk onto a plane. It sounds amazing. I would never attempt that. But I think he
Can't do it.
reasons it with, he loves to stay at the Orlando resort, right? A lot of times he's flying to and from Orlando there. So I think he's like, I'm here at the hotel if something goes wrong for some of those flights, but you can't do that.
He can see TSA from his window sometimes,
And
so
I
he
love
knows
those
exactly
stories
how
too,
that.
but
Yeah, but
I'll never
yeah,
be
crazy.
absolutely. Going from riding the lightning and, potential airport mishaps right to our boy Troy. Another one. He just had horrible flying story. I mean, you like feel for Troy because he's just trying not to like get anxious or worked up when this stuff happens. Like I would be going nuts. So, basically to recap it, he's on a runway with his lovely fiance to head to Orlando. And we just had a little bit of a delay on our vacation. I think on the way there. And same thing, I think I was listening to Rogan like Troy was, and I'm like, I hope I don't blow through too much of this. I like to listen to some in the air. If a lot of the podcast goes by, that's like 3 hours, sometimes more. He listens to the whole podcast. So he's on the
Poor
runway
Troy.
for 3 hours. 3 hours. And then I think him and his wife, you can deplane, get off, and she able to book a next one. Their flight was canceled, so they had to fly the next day. And my favorite part of this story is that all the guys from the show are watching on apps and the sites and texting each other. Like that is incredible.
Yeah, it's such a great part because we know why Jim's interested, because Jim has a
Always.
fascination with flight and being delayed. And if it's weather based or turbulence, we know that. So he's going to be paying attention to that group text. Sam was actually with Hot Dog setting up for his wrestling
Wrestlers Mania.
yeah, as Jim would say, Wrestlers Mania show that he was doing, his individual, not Sam show with Hot Dog, and he's torn away from that to kind of check on these techs, and of course Travis loves them anyway. So yeah, it was very cool how everybody was kind of updated on the out going out of his realm and traveling to Florida and not making it when he wanted to.
Absolutely. I love that they were texting each other.
Yes.
Travis had a nice family sports outing that you could relate to, especially Chris. And was it ruined by somebody's maybe an early joke in their comedy career that was shared previously?
Oh my goodness, it's such a great story. So yeah, I guess Travis's daughter was competing in a track meet at Metuchen High School. I think that is that in New Jersey, I believe.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
is.
so he's at Metuchen High School, which of course Jim's earlier career joke was, "I'm a touching myself," and that was his
Like an
funny
Elvis
joke.
impression, I believe.
Yeah, it did not work for him. And then the rest of the week they're talking about it, and they also talked about, I think Opie might have contributed to that joke when it first was put out there, with an addition of something to it. And of course, it just killed the joke and ruined the mood. I mean, the joke's already bad, it just made it worse. So they didn't come out and say it, but we all knew that it was an Opie insertion that they were laughing at all week. But yeah, it was Travis. He couldn't focus on his daughter's
You couldn't just
track
enjoy.
meet. Yeah, he couldn't enjoy himself because he's looking at the signage from the high school and thinking of Jim's joke every single time. And I was thinking about this and I came to the realization I believe Jim's most favorite thing in his life, as we all know, is the outside world, just ruining things that people like or know so many years later. That Metuchen thing happened so long and they told the story. Here's Travis. His day is being ruined by Jim, and Jim takes so much joy in that. The baby driver, Jim takes joy in that.
There's a lot of
Just,
things.
yeah.
The one that sticks out to me is how about Sam getting married, looking into the crowd, worried that Edgar's going to say he objects
Yeah.
because Jess is of lower stock. I mean, he
He-
literally thought that was going to happen during his wedding.
so during your wedding, one of the most important things in your life,
Right.
you're thinking that your friend is going to not behave himself. And Jim, complete joy in that whole thing.
It's amazing. It is one of the best parts, whether it's a movie or a very important life moment. Jim is in your head.
Yeah.
Jim is in
He
your
loves
head,
being there.
especially Sam's at his wedding. And speaking of Sam, this is something we've heard over the years where Sam, when he talks about Syracuse, people are talking about broadcasting recognition or college. Sam does kind of bring up that he is not in the Syracuse Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and it's interesting that I think he does. I think he cares about that,
Yeah.
and I think he deserves it. I think he absolutely deserves it.
He laughs it off, but I think
Yeah,
it does matter to him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
he does deserve it because look at his career path, right?
Right.
He went from school. Was he was an intern, was he not? Or just Travis
Yeah,
was an
yeah.
intern?
He was an intern.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he was an intern, then he worked his way up, and as a
no name.
producer,
Yeah,
and then, got some on-air stuff and then wanted to get his own on-air. So, he has worked his way up. And that's what you want. If you're the university, you want to show, hey, we molded this guy, we put him out there, and look how successful he is. And he's extremely successful. Even if you took away Jim and Sam and the whole serious thing, he's successful for WWE.
100%. Yeah,
He
yeah. I was gonna
should
say,
be in their broadcasting hall of fame, and it's a disservice.
yes, the WWE stuff puts him over like so much on the A&E, talking head on the A&E documentaries on ESPN now. But even if you take away all the wrestling stuff, like what he's done in radio, absolutely, he's worthy of a college's broadcasting hall of fame, I think. So, people listening, somebody start a little one of these online petitions. Let's get Sammy in the Syracuse Broadcasting Hall of Fame. Let's do it.
For sure. Absolutely.
And I think that kind of led to, or somewhere around there, led to a discussion on old broadcasters, and people kind of got to thinking about local news. I'm sure Jim brought up Chuck Scarborough, who's been on WNBC. He's still on, or he was on he's still
No,
on.
he's still on. He's
Yeah,
been there
50
for like
years now.
50 years. That's just
Yeah.
incredible. And then, go ahead.
the Sue Simmons clip. I didn't know she was yelling at Chucky S. I thought she was yelling at like the camera person, like O'Reilly did, or something. But yeah, what the F are you doing? Famous Sue Simmons
Yeah,
clip. She said
yeah.
she was yelling at Chuck because he was on too many search engines, I believe, during broadcasts.
Yeah, there's just those old timers. I mean, and they alluded that maybe she was drunk in that. Who knows? We don't really know, but I can attest because I worked in television news at the beginning of my career for quite some time. And as a photojournalist and editor, I'm around our anchors, working directly with them, preparing the news. And the anchors would do the 5 o'clock news in the afternoon, right? And that wraps up at 6. They'd go to dinner, maybe some drinks. They come back around 8, 9 o'clock. They look at the rundown for the show and write some stories, maybe. And then they deliver the news at 10. Well, they have too many drinks in that break. They have come back of being a little tipsy, and I witnessed it firsthand. Plus, on another side of it, there was a anchor just like Chuck Scarborough in Denver when I was growing up.
Yeah,
I mean, I was 7 years old, 8 years old, and this guy was on television. And I thought my dad knew him because it was a station that my dad always watched. And just for some reason, I thought, damn, dad knows this guy. I end up working with this guy in my early 20s. That's how long he was at the station. He was a
wow.
fixture. And so, yeah, I can really, see myself in the story with Chuck Scarborough.
Yes, yes. People who just don't leave. So you think that happens in like a lot of small markets or big markets too, that people are
I
just having
think it
some
happens
drinks?
more in big markets
Yeah,
because think about if
nicer
you're in New
restaurants.
York, I mean, you just go out of the big city and you walk down the block to your restaurant and do it. If you're in a small town, you got to get in your car. They don't want to get the DUI, even though we've heard anchors getting, DUIs
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, I think it happens a lot. And then I remember too, once that newscast wrapped up at 10 o'clock, I'm in my early 20s. I'm up for whatever we're doing. We'd go and have drinks and some
More.
beers at 11 o'clock with the anchors would come with us.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it was a time for that. And I don't know if it's still like that, but definitely was in the 90s.
HR probably stands in the way a little bit, but that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And there was some amazing Beatles talk. It makes me want to listen to the Beatles when they talk about the Beatles, and especially that documentary where they're putting all the songs together. But
Yeah.
the Beatles talk led to an amazing all-time great Jim and Sam story. I don't know if it was on A before, but it definitely kind of grew and expanded in the Jim and Sam universe for sure. Troy's dad, I believe, was an audio engineer working on a show in Pennsylvania, and Ringo Starr was there, and Troy's dad's like, "Hey, my kid's a fan. Will you sign something for him?" And then the famous one thing.
One
One
thing.
thing,
I'm gonna
Troy brought a
sign one
couple,
thing. Yeah.
and
And
I
then
want to get
it's
your take. Like you're a big music guy. I collect a bunch of stuff. I agree with Jim. Troy didn't think that it was a cool thing that he had like some kind of like supermarket like magazine with Ringo on it.
yeah.
I think that's awesome, and like you won't be able to find those probably. And he got that signed. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely an incredible thing to have signed. And they
Yeah,
even talked about going and finding the other ones, even if they aren't signed. And then maybe we can get Paul McCartney to sign one of them. Then you
yeah,
have a kind of a
unreal.
set. Those guys know it. Of course, Sam and Jim know those kind of collectible things, and Troy should do that. And then he talked about, what he wants to get signed is he has one of the I can't remember what album it was for, but the one with the baby parts and the meat on it. He has one of those original that was kind of an album cover that they actually, recalled and didn't put out to the public, and he has one of those. So incredible story. And I think that it's unfortunate, and I want to get your take on this, that Troy's dad got yelled at for trying to get that autograph in that time for his son. We've been around celebrities. There is kind of a thing of you don't ask them for those type of things. Asking for a photo is fine, but I think autographs, it's not autographs as much as photos anymore, but sometimes you don't interact. What's your thoughts?
I think if you're just chilling and you read the situation, like if you're working and the celebrity's involved and there's only a couple people around, it's quiet, they're just friendly, like maybe not even looking at their phone. Like there's times where you can, and you'd be like, oh, okay, sorry. And then you just if you apologetic if they're not up for you, I'll say, oh, sorry, didn't mean to bother you, and then you keep working. Working's a tough
You've
thing
done,
if you're working, but who
yeah.
cares? Like, and for in that situation, like Troy probably loves that his dad did that. Like
Yeah,
here's if he got yelled at. You're not like, oh my God, my dad got. You're like, my dad's awesome for making that happen. So
right.
I
And you've
think
done publicity so much. Have you ever had to turn people away from things like that? Have you ever been out on a location and people want to get in
most of
and
the
have
stuff I do
access?
is remote.
Okay.
But when I worked with Marion Hossa doing publicity at a Barnes and Noble, I was at a few signings with him, but at Barnes and Noble, people were bringing we're telling everyone like, look, he's just going to sign the book, but people brought all kinds of things, and
And
this
tell our
other
viewers, in
celebrity.
case they don't know who he is, what he was.
So Hall of Fame hockey players on Blackhawks won 3 Stanley Cups. So
Yeah.
big deal here in Chicago, kind of among hockey fans in general. Recent inductee to the Hall of Fame. But anyways, when people would like bring a bunch of stuff, this is a good example of people working with celebrities. The celebrity can never look like they're the person turning anyone down.
Yeah.
So
So
if
you have to
you're
be the
like
bad.
the publicist or the manager, you gotta be like, hey, no, like you got to be the jerk. So I didn't love being the jerk, but I'd be like, hey guys, come on, we're just signing books. And he was so nice, taking a bunch of pictures of everyone, and he would sign stuff as people like snuck stuff through,
Yeah.
since they did. And he didn't want to turn people down, but yeah, it's up to the person working with the celebrity to be the jerk, and sometimes that's why that happens.
And we've all experienced ones that are really bad at that and are jerks for no reason. And the other ones that are
Sure.
like, hey guys, I'm sorry, this is what we got to do. And they have to be that gatekeeper like you talked about. But I think they need to have, and you do such a good job, have a great relationship with who they're representing, right?
Yeah.
Knowing what their, let's say their talent or the person that they're, taking care of wants. It's like, hey man, I don't want to sign anything today. I don't feel
Yeah,
good.
there's certain times.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
when I covered hockey players too, like I'd heard one guy, and maybe this was a common philosophy, that from the hotel to the bus to the arena on the road, that's just the one time that they just want to be focused and they don't
Right.
want to
They have a
sign.
job
So
to do.
you gotta give people their time as well. And listen to us, big time showbiz guys.
Yes,
Give us
right.
our time. So from go back
Scott
to
and I, just so you know, if you see Scott and I in the airport, we'll take pictures and
if
sign
we're eating with
anything
our
you want.
family, leave us alone. But for otherwise, maybe I'll sign something.
Oh, I have not ever been recognized for anything like that before. So we'll see what ever happens.
I signed a Blackhawks shoe one time. I signed next to Patrick Sharp, another great player, because some person read me and was foolish enough to want me to sign their shoe, and it was like there's like other players on there. I'm like,
Well,
okay.
they talked about the guy that called in that had he did he had the baseball signed by all these greats, and then as a kid he wrote Mookie
Oh
Wilson
yes,
or whatever he wrote on the thing.
yes. He ruined the Babe
And he
Ruth
ruined
signed
the
item.
whole thing. He
Oh
ruined the
my
whole
god.
thing.
Well, speaking of collectibles, there was more Kiss poster talk.
No, wait a minute. There's more?
Oh, there's more.
Oh, okay.
There's more. If you ever thought there was less, we saw I think it was what last week was the video, right? Where Nikki on YouTube, Nikki went away. I think she went back to Norway, and Jim scurried down to the storage lockers. And I do love he's manic with it, but I love his system. Like I get the posters, I get them framed, they go here. You see all my junk here. I love the system. I got stuff framed, I got a frame guy. I love that he does it. I know how much joy it brings you. But they're looking. Travis is looking at posters because Jim missed out on one at an auction and it just crushed him. Um, that's probably a feeling I should know more, but I don't.
Yeah,
That
yeah. You wish you
you
could go
lose
get
one.
the things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Jim called it the one that got away, right?
The one that got away, so he's heartbroken. And yeah, I could identify that when you really want something that's going to fit in nice to your collection. So Travis is trying to find it, and in the process, how many do you think it was? Like over 10
Yeah,
posters. He was like,
15.
got that one? Got that
Yeah,
one?
Travis goes, is this one the one? He goes, nope, I already have that one. No, I got three of those. It's that kind of situation. It was great.
Yeah, and so Jim's like, we obviously love Jim. He's not crazy with the posters because there's a whole Facebook group where he does these auctions. There's a lot of interest in Kiss posters, and they're not just like $5 posters. They're rare. Ones from other countries. Ones that was a limited
Yeah.
print run. When you see these auctions online, always usually like hundreds of dollars at least. So there's a lot of interest in them, and Jim is not the only Kiss poster hobbyist. And we know that because they pulled up John Five's collection, and
Yeah.
I also identify it this when I know someone has an amazing collection, their whole house is like collection, like a museum. I would love to go there too.
Yeah.
I'd love to grab a coffee, go there, or have some beers and check out all their stuff. That'd be amazing. I would
Yeah. I
want
mean, like, it's like going like to
house.
Graceland. I don't know if you've been to Graceland, but
Yeah, it sounds like
they
it.
have all that stuff is right there. And they have this whole museum on the grounds there. So yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
John Five, or Jimmy would call it Johnny Five. John Five has this great, incredible collection that Jim would like to see, but some people get kind of disappointed in those collections, though.
they do. And somebody was kind of disappointed in Jim for having his life be this way at his age. Who was that?
Mr. Robert Kelly made a call in to the station, into the show, and was talking to them about how he's sick of hearing about this and that Jim's just depressed, and he needs to find a better hobby, and it's like, why don't you be a man? Why don't you collect like watches or knives? Well, those are the things that Bob likes. They're not the things that Jim likes. Why can't Jim collect the things he likes? So it was really funny.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of Bob, Sam bought Bob a hoodie, WrestleMania exclusive hoodie from WrestleMania, and Sam got a lot of merch at WrestleMania, and I love that he still loves that he has the dolls, as Jim would maybe Travis would call them,
Called.
and all this stuff in his studio at his house, and he also is super professional broadcaster with WWE. I love that he is still such a fan. That's how I am with entertainment. When I do interviews for Forbes, that's kind of how I was when I covered the Blackhawks. One of my last years covering the Blackhawks, I think it was 2017. They had the NHL draft in Chicago, so I'm
Right.
covering the draft, and I realized, like, well, today's the day. Today's media day. There's some people around. There's a big store. I bet they have a bunch of exclusive draft stuff. So I go in there, a bunch of drafts. I'm buying stuff for me, for family. I got two big shopping bags, and I walk out. I'm like, oh, that's right. We have media availability now with some coaches and
Right.
players for the drafts. I think it was just the Blackhawks specifically. And so I go out there, I sit in the chairs, and there's cameras and people on stage. I'm like the last one there. I got two big shopping bags, and everyone just starts talking. Everyone kind of looks at me like, dude, I couldn't be
Hey,
happier.
yeah, this is who I am. And that's
Right.
what makes Sam good at his job, because he loves sport,
Yes.
entertainment. He loves WWE, and that's why he's good at it. He knows about it. That's why you are good at what you do. And I remember when the NFL draft was here in Chicago, we had 2 years
Yes.
of that, and
Yes.
I was covering it for Chicago, the Bears, what the Bears are going to pick and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
it's awesome.
my team, the Denver Broncos, also has picks in that draft. So we do the Bears stuff. We're done with that. And my whole crew goes home, and I'm like, well, the Broncos haven't picked yet, so I'm just going to stick around and see what that is. So
Right.
the Broncos pick. Now we're in Chicago. There's not a lot of media that cares about what the Broncos picks. There's national media, but there's no
Right.
Chicago media. So we're in the press conference room, and I have my cell phone, my iPhone, and here's the Broncos first round pick. I got myself my iPhone in the crowd, and I'm asking questions. So you think it's going to be important because I know the team.
It's
This is my
awesome. Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
So it was like I did my job as you did your job, but then I also did things that I wanted to do because I cared about it.
Oh, it's
So,
great. You appreciate
and
the
having
moment. You always have that capture. It's the
and
best.
having access to these things as fans is incredible. Like, how Sam was talking about, he went into the store before it was open to the public, right? And being able to do that. And just that access that we have, it's a great feeling when you're working an event and you're in the place where no one else is supposed to be except you are allowed to be in there. That's a great feeling.
It is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I agree. Um, Something else that I thought was very amazing. That was actually on Thursday's show. I believe it was Thursday's show. Jim, just trying to keep up with the guys. I appreciate this, that there had been a lot of discussion about the We Are the World doc, and Jim wanted to watch it, to educate himself for the show. And he, rented it to watch it. I think he got about an hour 40 in, he said. Yeah, I think it was 3 hours. And he realized he was watching one from the 80s.
It
And
was
Nikki watched it with him.
Yeah, he made Nikki's young, was born after this all happened,
Yes.
obviously, so it was crazy. So yeah, he's watching a documentary that it was not the one that was for free on Netflix. If you have a Netflix account, he rented it. And this is one of the times, and I do laugh a lot, but this is one of the times where I actually really laughed out loud driving in my car. I'm like, of course he did.
Yeah, that's right.
Only Jim would do something like that. So yeah,
Yes.
he watched the new one afterwards, and
Yeah.
they broke it down again, which I love because that's my era.
Yes. Yes. And that's so the We're the World talk and Jim watching both. Probably, so he committed probably about 5 hours of We Are the World with Nikki. Led to the Diana Ross story being revisited. Jim asked her for a picture, and she said, "No, please." No,
Please,
please.
no, please.
And then Jim tells her, then Jim has lied under duress during some of these celebrity situations.
Yes.
Um, in other situations, he said that his parents met at one of her concerts, and then Jim let on that they actually just met at a bar in Jersey.
Yeah, he's
That
trying
reminded me
to.
of the time he lied about having cancer at what was it, Woodstock, so you can use like a special bathroom.
Yeah. Well, did that surprise you? You need to use the restroom? Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It was such a great story. And, he even talked about how he pushed through about, 5 or 10 people down the jetway to get to her. I just, we forget now, Jim's
Yes.
star has risen so high that Jim was such a photograph hound. He would do anything to get that photograph, so much so that some of
Yeah.
his friends would tell him that that's a famous person over there when they truly weren't famous.
And I never blamed him. I could kind of put myself in
Yeah,
that for several years, same way. So you try to get a picture, try to get an autograph.
that's right.
He was more persistent perhaps, but I always love those stories. And that went into another amazing story. The Nicolas Cage story revisited. It's one that I could hear over and over again when
Huh?
Jim's next to Nicolas Cage. Yeah, he's like Jim is going to go tape a special, so he tries to ask Nick Cage about lighting, and Nicolas Cage I think had headphones on. And he just goes, "Did he have headphones on?" I
I
don't
don't know
remember
if
that
he
part of
did
the
or
story.
just was
Well,
not paying
I think he
attention
just
to
wasn't paying
Jim.
attention, and he goes, "Huh?" The famous
Huh?
"huh,"
I
and,
love that. Anytime
uh,
that sound comes out, it just makes me giggle.
and
Huh?
then maybe even better is when Jim asks for him for a picture, and he goes, "I'd rather not."
You can just hear Nick Cage saying that. I'd rather
And
not.
then he said,
Yeah,
"I'll sign something for you," which makes
yeah,
him cool. He signed
yeah,
something. He has it from
yeah.
that
But
experience
just,
from a great
I
actor.
mean, I'm sure Jim was in first class too. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
I kind of
something,
with you.
there's something where you kind of go, I don't
Plane's a
want to even,
personal thing, though.
I
You're
don't even want to
traveling, you have your
sign.
seat.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Maybe like, how about when we land? Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It just
But
seems like you're more on the level of the celebrity if you're
I agree
sitting
with
next to
you.
them in
Yeah, I
first
agree with
class.
you
So
there for sure. But so what's
you
interesting
can't
is
be.
I could hear, I love that Diana Ross story. It actually reminded me of the Madonna story too, where she goes, "No, thank you."
Yes, yes. No,
But
thank you.
we get the Nick Cage story, and I love this is the kind of stuff that I love about the show that you get Travis and Troy both saying, "Yeah, that's my favorite Jim story ever." So you think about I mean, you go back to 1 8, what do
The
we have?
pathing. Yeah,
Hundreds of
right.
amazing best radio ever Jim Norton stories. And this is these guys' favorite. And I love that. I love that this story brings us so much joy. It brings me a lot of joy.
That would be a great episode. My mind's just kind of thinking about it while you're talking about it, where the guys, list, and maybe this could be another
Bracket.
tournament,
Bracket
another
challenge.
bracket, about the things, the best stories, the 5 or 3 best stories that they love about each guy. Sam says it about Jim and all that kind of stuff. They put it together in a bracket and see which wins. What is truly the best story of the Jim and Sam show?
Absolutely. I agree. We're letting these shows breathe now. I got the full-time Zoom, but
Yeah.
it's been a great one. We're gonna truck through here. Some quick hits to go over. I'm gonna start with this one first. OJ, interesting. Found out in the middle of the show, OJ passed on Wednesday's show, I believe, right?
No,
Or
Thursday. It was just
Thursday. It was
Thursday. Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Right at the end of the show,
Um,
pretty much.
yeah, it was interesting. And I right away, I'm like, I had heard right before I was listening, and I'm like, Sam's reaction is going to be interesting because Sam loves him some OJ talk,
Yes.
and whether it's the Juice Hello Twitter World,
Yeah.
the series that he watched, I think like five rewatches of the series with
Yeah.
Cuba,
Yeah.
and and he loves to say that he was fiscally responsible for the murders, but Sam was just kind of like shocked, like, oh wow, like
I
it's
think
kind
we
of
all were
crazy.
shocked a little bit. Yeah.
Everyone's like, you don't expect to hear that, I guess, during. I don't know how many people knew about
Yeah.
his cancer.
Just a little brief one on that. I started in the news business in 92, and this happened, I believe, in 94. Is it the White Bronco chase? And it was a Friday night. We all know it was during like a basketball championship game for the NBA, and they're doing a split screen. And I was with an NBC team, our team station at that point.
Yeah,
So yeah, so we, it's all that kind of stuff. Well, I was new to the business. It's a Friday night. I was working at 3 a.m. that Saturday morning as the only editor for our weekend morning news, Saturday morning news program. So it was everything. And I was so busy. I just remember having to watch that Friday night, going to bed, and knowing that my Saturday morning was going to be consumed by the chase.
yes, yes, absolutely. It was. I mean, it was like the biggest event ever.
Absolutely. And they also talked about how, we might not have any of this. I think it might have been Miguel or somebody else pointed it out. We might not have any opium Opie and Anthony, Jim and Sam, if it wasn't for OJ, because that's how Anthony got into doing stuff, is doing the OJ
Oh,
impression, right?
wow. Yeah, you're right. I forgot
So
that's such a big part of that.
that's how he got
Those are
in.
on YouTube. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can listen to those. Very good point. Maybe another. We haven't really quite had at this one. I mean, this kind of close. I think Staten Island is the closest White Castle, but we do need like even as a micro road trip. I feel like the guys need to go do something together and document it and talk about it on the show. I would like a White Castle trip. Jim alluded to the gas he would have after. Maybe he could bring that to the show on Monday if they go like Sunday. That'd be
Or surprise Nikki with it when he got home.
yes, exactly, exactly. And the thing with the trip though is it would just leave you like scratching your head, like, ah, Sam, come on, just try a burger, dude. Like it's White Castle, just try. And he's not going to. It's so strange that he didn't try it till like a couple years ago on his Annoying Eater show. But in his defense, I've had the chicken and waffles, a change of pace there. It is delicious. But I still don't understand. I
Get
don't
a
understand
crave
the
pack
burger.
and share them, boys, for
I don't
crying out
understand the
loud.
meat thing.
I
Yeah.
don't get it. I don't get it. But just like
To each their own.
Bobby saying, Jim, you need to like the things I like. Well, we can't tell Sam that he needs to like the things we like. He likes the things he likes. He's a grown man, whatever. It is kind of weird, but whatever.
We'll let it go. um, Speaking of letting things go, because I don't think Jim is using tools to steal pornography anymore. I think he's good, but he used to get dirty movies from drugstores, which I thought was this is another great story because like I guess I didn't know you could do that. I think I remember some drugstores around here having movies. I don't know if they had dirty movies. So Jim used
The
to do that
kicker,
as a boy.
yeah, the kicker of that one is he also had to rent the machine and walk back home with the machine
Right,
and the
Yeah,
movies.
VCR, yeah,
And then the machine sometimes wouldn't work and he already carried it home.
yeah.
I
Carrying it
could just
home,
see
a young
young Jay
lad.
with those thick glasses and
Ah,
probably filled up already thinking
Alex
about
in
it.
his hair.
Yeah,
Oh my God. And
it
then
was
yes, then
very
he said
funny.
there was a motel that had a like a machine that
Magazines.
had or
Yeah,
magazine
and
magazines.
he had
He
a
would use
vending
a
machine
screwdriver
because
to pry it open.
yeah, it was a trucker's motel, which
Yes.
makes a little sense. And you tried to break in there and steal the magazines. But they talked about the lengths and you'd have to go to back in the day to try to get this porn that is, easily available on everybody's phone.
Man. And that's why he's been an edgelord as well. I
Yes,
think
yes.
all this work and time.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then that kind of went into how they were talking about Jim taking a date to the premiere of one of our
Yes.
favorite movies, White Chicks Incorporated. Hey, Scott, have you grabbed a hottie lately?
Yeah,
Everybody,
we had a
grab
hug
a
last
hottie.
night, Chris. Grabbed
There
a
you go.
hottie,
There you
joined the
go.
party. It
Nice
was
job, Mrs. King. Yeah, grab a hottie. That they went through that whole scene again and how stupid it was and how they're at a pool party in late autumn and the leaves are off the trees. But what they talked about, and I forgot about this too, is that they were planning to do a screener and a party for this movie and inviting fans of the show and doing this. And this is like right before COVID, and then COVID
yeah,
happened. They never went to it,
they
so
should do
they
it.
thought
They
about
should
doing
do
it
it.
again. So all right, we got the soiree that needs to happen, and we also have this screening party that needs to
White
happen.
Castles,
Yeah, there's a lot of
Smokin',
things.
like
Yeah,
we can't let them off the hook for these things.
not at all.
The preview, so all the stuff they said was right about the White Chicks. The preview is so hard to watch. There is a part with the preview that annoys me so much. What's the worst part of the preview for you?
I don't think I've ever looked at it myself. I've always
Okay,
just listened about
you
it. So
have to.
tell me. Yeah,
There is that horrible song, Grab a Hottie, Join the
yeah,
Party.
right.
There's like, I don't think it's Jim, but they have like, there's like other comics or actors doing like a crazy dance to the party, and it's like kind of like a choppy edit, and it's like, oh,
I got to look at this again.
oh,
I did see a little bit of it because I remember seeing Florentine and I remember seeing the outside, and everybody was kind of looking cold at a summer pool party. And then of course he talked about the all passing out, but oh, the cops and fire department are coming to help everybody. It's just there's so many holes in that script.
there are a lot of holes. Um, let's get to best guest. And
Yeah.
not a lot to pick from. Karen Margolis and Amanda Gale were in together, and then we had Nathan McIntosh on Thursday. We kind of hit this one quick. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know much about Karen. Remember her and her name before. And they have a podcast and they're celebrating their year anniversary, unlike us selling, so when is our invite to go to
Maybe an
the Jim and
invite.
Sam show
Yep.
just to celebrate our year anniversary of our podcast? So they talked about that and they talked about a lot of different things on, how they had to change their format and that kind of stuff. So maybe we need to look at changing our format. I think it's working out though. We'll see. And trends of the 90s. So they were interesting. And then of course we had Nathan McIntosh. And I don't remember Nathan being on. He seemed familiar with the guys, and he has a new special called Down with Tech, which sounds really interesting, but it's airing or being streamed on Tech on a YouTube channel. So it's crazy. And they talked a lot about AI and his scared lifestyle of worrying about robots taking over. So that was right up Jim and Troy's alley, of course. And then they even talked about what we heard, Lunchables is going to be a big part of our world, that how they're not good for people. And they talked about that as kids. So, yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Nathan, I thought sounded like, he reminded me of Mike Feeney.
Yeah, like Feeney. You're right.
But yeah, no, it's a good guess. Amazing week. And, let's go ahead. Let's get to the line of the week. I have one. What do you got?
I have two. So why don't you go first, and I'll share my two, and we'll get.
All right. I bet you might have one. But I jotted this down. I jotted this down 3 days ago when I heard it. So good. So as in the Metuchen break.
Yes.
I think Travis just kind of had the line he fired out. Where's the meat, honey? And Jim right away says, "That's what your wife says." I
absolutely had that as my finals. It was so quick and so funny because, yeah, like you said, he's just talking about a conversation he had with family, and he's just like mimicking, like, so where's the meat at, honey? And Jim said, that's exactly what your wife says. So great get there for a line, Scott. You and me are of like minds. I had another one that happened after the results of no, it wasn't even after. It was during when they're adding up the results of the things Jim hates bracket. And, I think we've noticed that Mike Montone has a little bit challenges with math at times, right? And so they're working all that up. And Jim said, yeah, I wonder how many dead civilians there are because of the wrong coordinates you put in. Like when he was in the military and putting in the coordinates because he didn't add them up right, that there's a lot of dead civilians. So very funny, very quick. Yeah. I loved it.
I'm not mad at that one, taking the cake, if that takes the cake.
Yes, sir.
It is an amazing line. And Mike, really enjoyed it as well. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Always appreciate you guys watching and listening. Continue to listen to Jim and Sam, and then check us for the recap. And Chris, thanks for everything you've done for our show up to this point and for this episode, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's always good to get together with you and go over this stuff, and just reliving it is fun. And, I love that we're moving into year 2 of the Town Square.
Thanks for watching and listening to the Jim and Sam Town Square. Please remember to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell, not dog bell, so you don't miss an episode.
And if you're just listening to the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it.